There has been a really big update in Gianluca Scamacca, the saga of seeing him potentially leave West Ham United this summer. One that I wasn't certain would come. I didn't think that him leaving this summer was a possibility. However, according to friend of the channel, Fabrizio Romano, that may be a thing that's on the horizon. However, before we get there, I just want to jump over to a little bit of other striker news and shout out Callum Marshall, who is, of course, one of our academy players and academy forward who made his senior debut for Northern Ireland tonight, somehow making a senior debut for the national team before the club, which is a bit insane. Came on and 10 minutes after coming on, scored the equaliser, a lovely finish, a lovely, smart, clever little deft spin, turn, volley thing. If you haven't already, make sure to go and check it out. Which, Callum, if you see this, I know you won't, but I'm going to speak directly to Callum here. Callum, if you see this, harshly ruled out by VAR. He got ruled out by VAR. Scenes, he's going mad. The celebrations are huge, and then VAR say no. I think they're wrong in this instance. I thought that was harsh. I'm going to go as far as to call it a disgrace. I think you've been stolen there, Callum. I think that's a mess, mate. But if you haven't already, go check out the goal. Really good work, and hopefully Callum is someone we see in the first team sooner rather than later, because he seems to have a massive future. And again, if you do somehow see this, congratulations, bro. You've absolutely nailed that. Getting a international call up is a big thing, and scoring as well, and it counts. A big thing. But let's get on to the Scamacca news. Let's get on to that main news, because there has been a huge update. Like I said, friend of the channel, Fabrizio Romano, tweeted this out earlier today. I recorded this yesterday for you because there was no way I was getting up. Hope your Saturday's going well. Hope your Saturday's going well, because there's no way I was waking up at time. AS Roma have agreed personal terms with Gianluca Scamacca, but West Ham have no intention to let him leave on loan as things stand. This is, of course, coming from Fabrizio Romano. This is the exact quote. I should have said that before I said it. This is his exact quote. Scamacca will insist to join Roma, while West Ham are waiting to find clubs to buy Scamacca on a permanent deal. Like I alluded to at the beginning, this isn't something I thought was going to happen. I felt like the idea of us loaning him out this summer would potentially be a possibility, but a permanent transfer didn't seem realistic because I don't think the money would be there. And I think when you're looking at terms of him leaving, or the opposition, or the chance of him leaving to different opposition clubs, I still think it's unlikely to happen, because I don't know who's going to pay the amount that we paid for Scamacca, and I'm not sure how keen we are to see another Sebastian Haller, Felipe Anderson situation where we spend a lot of money on a player, it doesn't work out for them, and then they end up leaving for significantly less. Haller, we recouped something back, although still not enough. Felipe Anderson, we basically recouped nothing back, right? So I don't think that was ever really a realistic possibility. The idea of us having conversations and maybe actively seeking for someone to pay for Gianluca Scamacca, to buy Gianluca Scamacca, is slightly surprising to me. But realistically, given the news that we've seen over the last couple of weeks or days, certainly, and since the final in the last week or two, of David Moyes staying for at least another season, you can understand why. Scamacca is a really good player. I still really like Scamacca, just like I really liked Haller where he was here. You can see the talent. It's clear as day to see that he is a talented player. But the truth is, the space for him just doesn't exist. The tactics for him just don't exist. And if you ask Scamacca, although I've never believed the reports that he was massively unhappy at West Ham, that he'd fallen out with a manager and all these other things, just like I didn't believe them with Haller either. I never really believed those reports. You can understand if you are Gianluca Scamacca and you find out that David Moyes is staying for another season, that you're like, right, I've got to get out of here, because I can't waste another year of my career sitting around doing nothing. Because even when he does play, one, let's be honest, he'll be second choice behind Mikel Antonio, potentially third if you want to talk about Danny Ings. I know that's a whole other kettle of fish to be going forward with, right? But you're always going to be at least second best, and even then you'd be coming on in a situation where the style's not really suiting you. I think we've seen in Europe we accommodated him somewhat, and that's something that in the back of my mind thinks might still exist. Are we going to go for it again this year? And by go for it, I don't mean going for a cup competition win. What I mean is, first half of the season, Mikel Antonio spoke about it on a podcast recently, for example. It was very clear to me that we were trying to implement a different style of football, not wholesale Pep Guardiola change and difference between what we were doing and Pep, but more possession. We were trying to play something that was a little bit out of Moyes' wheelhouse, and it just clearly didn't work. And Gianluca was a big part of that. He was a big cog in that machine. And we saw him score goals with that sort of system, but the system as a whole wasn't working. Obviously, we struggled in the Premier League and we ended up being in the sort of relegation scrap until relatively near to the end of the season. Are we going to go for that again? Is David Moyes, what lessons are going to be learned from this year? Because there are two ways of looking at it, right? The first way is that we changed back to the classic Moyes ball system, and that succeeded massively. That kept us up. We won a trophy with it. Are we going to stick with that? Or are we going to go and try again with the new system, with potentially a bunch more new players that we will have signed this summer? If we sign, say, 4 players, 5 players, whatever we end up signing, a couple, at least a couple you would imagine being in contention to be first team starters out of the block. Are we going to try again for that kind of system? Are we seeing it? Because there must have been a reason we tried to do it in the first place, right? And I think from what Mikel Antonio said in that podcast was the idea of going and trying to break teams down that we weren't able to break down before, trying to take the best out, to try to take the best out of those teams, you know? Because we all know that we've struggled against teams who tend to sit deep and play essentially Moyes ball back at Moyes. We know we've always struggled to break those teams down under Moyes. And so are we going to go again? Because if we are going to go again for that, then Gianluca Scamacca you probably want to keep because he's the guy. Because I don't think Mikel Antonio is capable of playing up front in that kind of system. It just doesn't feel right for him. He might be able to adapt to it, sure. I mean, the guy adapts to literally everything we ask him to do, basically. But it certainly doesn't feel like his strength. Equally, you could say Danny Ings is there for that, and maybe that gives us a little bit more freedom to look for someone, to look for a new club for Gianluca Scamacca, especially if they're going to pay what we paid for him. Maybe be looking at it and saying, well, we've got Danny Ings sat there who could probably play that style if we wanted him to. Maybe that's where we're at. But of course, we can't go back without talking about the Mikel Antonio podcast, without talking about specifically what he said about Scamacca, about feeding off scraps and him not suiting that kind of system, which is very true. If we aren't going to do that, then he just doesn't have a place here. I could imagine us seeing him go out on loan if the terms were agreed that we would essentially get at the end of that loan what we paid for Scamacca back. I could see that happening in a similar sense to Vlasic, for example, although the terms for Vlasic were massively reduced, but still that kind of vibe. However, clearly West Ham only are looking for the money thing, and it makes sense. Why prolong it? If you can get the money back, why would you prolong it? I guess it's a shame. It's a massive, massive shame because I think, unlike Haller, where there were constant conversations about Sebastian Haller in the way he played and his demeanor and stuff like that. And obviously he went on to prove that his form before joining West Ham wasn't a fluke, you know, breaking Champions League records, joining Dortmund. He went on to prove that he was actually as good as we thought he was when he joined, even though there were sort of constant questions while he was here about his commitment. With Gianluca, although there have been similar things, I think we can all see his ability as clear as day. And it is just another what if. It is another, we wish we got the best out of him because it could have been so, so good. But unfortunately, that's where we're at. What would you like to see happen? Would you like to see Gianluca go? Do you think that, you know, his time at West Ham is sadly done? Do you want to see us try and persist and try and keep him? Would you be open to a loan? If you were open to selling him, how much money should we get for him? Let me know in the comment section below. It's going to be an interesting one. It's going to run on and on, I feel, a little bit. I would not be surprised if he stayed at the end of all of this, but equally, I wouldn't be surprised if he went either at this stage. What do you feel, though? Let me know down in the comment section below. Subscribe if you're new around here. If you just joined Have a Chat for the first time. Hello, how are you? We do West Ham videos basically every single day. We do live streams when the matches are on. Of course, we're having a little break now, which is quite nice over the summer. But the transfer news is hotting up. And there's going to be plenty more of it to come. So subscribe, hit the bell notification button so you don't miss out on any of that. And hey, like the video because it helps us out massively. Otherwise, thank you very much, everyone, for watching. Cover your eyes, and until next time, enjoy yourselves. See you later, everyone. Bye.